Hey everyone, welcome back. What if the worst mistake you ever made came back to haunt you years later? Imagine running into an old classmate you barely remember. At first, he seems harmless. He brings gifts and slowly tries to reconnect. But the more he shows up, the more unsettling things become. Today's story is a psychological thriller called The Gift. It's the kind of story that ends with one of the most disturbing twists you'll ever see. So get comfortable because this one takes a very dark turn. The movie begins with a married couple named Simon and Robin, who are planning to buy a new house since Simon has started a new job that will move them from Chicago. Days later, they head to a store to shop for furnishings. Simon is approached by a man who says they went to school together. His name is Gordon, though Simon remembers him as Gordo. But Robin quickly interrupts and asks for Gordo's number, promising they'll catch up another time since Simon has to give the clerk their delivery address. The next day, after Simon leaves for work, Robin is in the shower when the doorbell rings. She goes to answer it, but finds no one outside, only a wrapped bottle of wine and a letter. Later, when Simon comes home, Robin shows him the note. It reads, "Welcome home," from Gordon. They have no idea how he got their address, but Robin feels grateful for the thoughtful gesture. One afternoon, while Robin is cooking, Gordo unexpectedly shows up uninvited and hands her a list of essential contacts for plumbers, maids, and a glass cleaner. Then he expresses how much he loves this style of architecture, so Robin invites him in for a tour. As they walk around the house, Gordo notices a child's toy in one room and asks if they have a kid, to which Robin replies that they only have a dog named Mr. Bojangles at the moment. She also mentions that she plans to fill the pond outside with fish, and later invites him to stay for dinner. That evening, during dinner, Gordo asks Simon if he's in touch with their high school friends, including Greg Pearson. But Simon says he hasn't talked to anyone since graduation. Then, Gordo recalls that Simon was their class president and ran a campaign called Simon Says, and whatever he said happened. Then, Simon inquires about his life, to which he awkwardly replies that he joined the military after high school but later left, and that a lot of good and bad things happened to him right after that. Later, while cleaning up after dinner, Simon says he felt uncomfortable with Gordo around and thinks he must be delusional for thinking they were friends in high school. So, Robin assures him that it was only one dinner and they don't have to do it again. The next evening, when the couple returns home from work, they discover yet another gift from Gordo, along with a letter thanking them for dinner and a packet of fish food for the koi fish in their pond. Robin wants to thank him, but Simon says this is not normal and that Gordo is trespassing. He also mentions that everyone in school used to call him Gordo the Weirdo, but Robin says that Gordo is just misunderstood, and seeing how she reacts, Simon jokes that she now has a new friend. The next morning, when Robin is alone, Gordo unexpectedly shows up uninvited, so she invites him in for a cup of tea. Inside, he helps set up the TV and even starts picking up trash without being asked. However, while in the kitchen, he notices the fridge where Simon wrote Weirdo beside his phone number. Later that evening, Simon and Robin host a small get-together with Simon's colleagues. Then, Simon jokes about Gordo, the weirdo who shows up every day uninvited, picks up trash for them, and even noticed the weirdo note on the fridge that morning. Yet, despite being upset after seeing what Simon wrote, Gordo still invited them to dinner at his place, which prompts Simon's colleagues to joke that Gordo might chop them into pieces if they actually go. However, as time passes, the couple accepts the invitation and decides to go. Soon, they arrive at a huge, beautiful house and are shocked to see that he lives in such an extravagant place. Gordo greets them at the front door, and the couple hands him a bottle of wine. As they walk inside, curious, Simon asks if Gordo is married, to which he replies that it's a long story, but the short answer is no. Then, Gordo receives a phone call that seems urgent, saying he will only be gone for 5 minutes. After he leaves them alone in the house, Simon tells Robin that Gordo is obsessed with her, which explains all the nice things he does. While snooping around, they see Gordo pulling back into the driveway, so they run downstairs and greet him as if nothing happened. Then, Simon asks Gordo what he does for work to afford such a house, to which Gordo admits he lied about the urgent call and was actually speaking to his ex-wife. He explains she left with their 2 kids and owns the house, so he has to follow her rules. Robin feels sympathetic, but Simon doesn't care and asks her to wait in the car while he talks to Gordo alone. Here, Simon warns Gordo to stop visiting and sort out his situation and leaves. Back home, Simon and Robin get into bed thinking it's all over, but Robin feels something isn't right. After her morning run, she discovers that the fish Gordo gifted them are all dead, and their dog Jangles is missing. Simon quickly drives to Gordo's house, only to find a couple living there who have no idea who Gordo is. The police get involved, and an officer explains that Gordo used to work as a driver for the man who owns the house and had access to the garage, which is how he got inside. Simon wants their dog back, but the police say they can't get a warrant without evidence. The next morning, when Robin is alone at home, she hears running water and realizes the tap has been turned on, which makes her paranoid. Later that night, Simon is fast asleep, but Robin struggles to sleep, so she goes to another room to take some sleeping pills. Just then, she notices a light on in the hallway, and as she slowly goes to check, their dog Jangles suddenly surprises her. Seeing their dog's sudden reappearance, Simon is convinced this is Gordo's doing, yet Robin is still not 100% convinced. The next morning, Robin collects the mail and notices a letter from Gordo. In it, he apologizes for lying and says he felt ashamed to show them where he really lives. He also says he will leave them alone just as they asked, and even mentions forgiving Simon, saying he is willing to let bygones be bygones. But when Robin asks Simon what that means, Simon dismisses it, saying Gordo is just an unstable man who has no idea what he is talking about. Then, Robin is taking a shower when she suddenly sees someone entering the bathroom. It's Gordo, but just then, she jolts awake and realizes it was only a dream. Meanwhile, Simon is in a meeting where his bosses discuss a possible promotion and mention his competitor, Danny McDonald. Later, back home, Robin hears the door open and close, so she goes to check it, but suddenly collapses on the floor. The next morning, when Robin wakes up, Simon tells her he found her passed out the night before. Then Robin admits she is scared and asks Simon to call Gordo and apologize to make things right. She also asks again what he meant by let bygones be bygones, but Simon gets flustered and tells her to move on with her life and stop thinking about Gordo the weirdo. After that, months pass and Gordo never shows up again. So the couple slowly begins living a normal and happy life. Soon, Robin becomes pregnant. But one day, while she is in a store, she suddenly spots Gordo staring at her through the window, but he quickly disappears. Then, one day, Robin meets Simon's sister and asks if she knew Gordo, which surprises her, as she says that Gordo had molested a kid back in school. And later, he was bullied for that and eventually forced to leave the school. She then tells Robin to ask Simon more about it, since Simon and his friend Greg Pearson were the ones who reported the incident. So the next day, after Simon leaves for work, Robin opens his file cabinet. There, she discovers that Simon had run background checks on Danny McDonald and Gordo. The files show that Gordo has spent years in and out of prison, with several charges including breaking and entering and the abduction of a minor. Then, through some online searching, Robin finds Greg Pearson and goes to meet him at his workplace. There, she learns the shocking truth that it was actually Simon who made up the whole molestation story. In fact, Simon was the bully who ruined Gordo's life. Greg explains that Simon had the chance to tell the truth back then, but he never did. And because of his false accusation, Gordo's father believed his son was gay and even tried to burn him alive, which eventually led to the father's arrest for attempted murder, while Gordo was sent away to military school. Meanwhile, back at the house, Simon is talking with a colleague about his possible promotion, where he mentions that the other candidate is currently being investigated. Just then, Robin confronts Simon and tells him she met Greg and now knows the truth about what he did to Gordo. However, Simon denies everything. Instead, he claims it was only a small incident and refuses to apologize for something that happened 20 years ago. He even says Gordo should just man up and let it go. But Robin slaps him and tells him that he was a bully back then and he is still a bully now. In the end, Robin tells him he must apologize to Gordo to make things right, if not for himself, then at least for her. So later, Simon meets Gordo outside his workplace and gives him an apology. But Gordo quickly realizes the apology is not sincere, especially when Simon says Robin wanted him to do it. So, Gordo refuses to accept it and tells Simon it is too late now. Right then, Simon becomes angry and aggressive. He kicks Gordo to the ground and forces him to accept the apology, while calling him a loser. He also threatens him to stay away from his family alone, or else he will make his life hell and leaves. Later, Simon returns home and lies to Robin, saying Gordo was grateful for the apology and that everything is finally over. Then one day, Simon invites his colleagues over to celebrate his new promotion, but suddenly, they hear a loud bang that startles everyone. Someone has thrown a rock through the window, shattering it. Simon runs outside to check. Just then, a man jumps out of the shadows and pushes him. However, Simon manages to catch him and wrestle him to the ground. But the man is not Gordo. Instead, it is Danny McDonald, the other candidate for the promotion. Danny then angrily accuses Simon of stealing the promotion by sending a misleading email to their bosses, claiming that Danny had been accused of fraud at his previous company, thereby stealing his promotion and destroying his career. At that same moment, Robin's water suddenly breaks, so she is rushed to the hospital where she gives birth to a baby boy. While at the hospital, Simon receives a call from his colleague, stating that their boss has discovered how Simon fabricated evidence against Danny, and now he is fired from the job. Simon then tells Robin he is going home to check the broken window and see Jangles, but Robin tells him she doesn't want to return home with him and wants a divorce. Later, Simon returns home and finds a large gift box on the porch with a smiley face on it. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Gordo, now wearing a sling on his arm, quietly walks into Robin's room while she is asleep. Back at home, Simon opens the gift box and finds a baby carrier with 3 smaller gifts. First, he opens gift 1 and finds a key to his own house. Next, he opens gift 2 and discovers a CD recording of himself mocking Gordo during the dinner night, calling him a weirdo who was obsessed with Robin. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Robin wakes up and is shocked to see Gordo, with bandaged eye and sling, standing beside her bed, who simply congratulates her and asks if the baby is a boy or a girl. Back at home, Simon opens the 3rd gift and finds a DVD labeled Watch Me. Soon, he realizes Gordo had secretly recorded Robin inside the house. The video shows Robin passing out after her drink was spiked. Then, wearing a monkey mask, Gordo carries her to the bed and touches her while mocking Simon before the video suddenly cuts off. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Gordo tells Robin that Simon caused his injuries when he came to apologize, but instead humiliated and assaulted him. Later, Simon rushes to the hospital, but Robin is no longer in her room. Soon he spots Gordo entering an elevator, so he runs down the stairs to follow him, but loses him. As he frantically searches for him and heads outside, his phone rings. It turns out to be Gordo, who calls Simon to taunt him while refusing to confirm whether he raped Robin or fathered the baby, just as he once refused to admit the truth about the false molestation story years ago. But, before hanging up, he simply tells Simon to check the baby's eyes, because the eyes never lie. Panicked, Simon rushes back inside the hospital and finds Robin and the baby in another room. Then he stares into the baby's eyes, trying to understand, but he cannot figure them out. In the end, with his marriage and career destroyed, Simon collapses in tears while Gordo, the so-called weirdo, watches from a distance, satisfied with his revenge before quietly walking away and tossing the fake sling from his arm. With that, the movie ends. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.